Hey, hello again. Today we're going to do another project. This time we're going to make some modifications to our Ridgid Contractors portable table saw. Now, if you're a typical homeowner like me, you probably have a little garage shop or something of that sort where you got to share your garage with your vehicles as well as your woodworking hobby, so forth and so on. So that's what I work with. I love my little saw. Let's get right to it. All right, let's talk about the saw for a minute. This isn't, let's face it, this is not the best saw on the market out there. It's a good saw. It's out there, it competes with the Bosch brands and the DeWalt brands and a few others. I think at a better price point. Ridgid is owned by some company, I think it's called the Emerson Electric. And this machine actually is made overseas in China. It's a direct drive, it's not belt driven. Some of your better machines are belt driven. But this machine is really precise. There's a lot of good reasons for buying these types of saws that collapse and whatnot. So I'm a hobbyist enthusiast. I'm not a cabinet maker. I don't need this $10,000 saw or some of these others. Although there are some nice saws out there. However, this one does just great. So with some minor modifications, and we are claimed to be craftsmen, hobbyists. So what good craftsman / hobbyist doesn't make their own stuff? Let's modify it so it's perfect for us, or perfect for our uses. And all right, guys, I am filming this with some various film cameras, so just have to excuse the little iPad there so I can see myself as I record. Anyway, let's talk about the saw for a minute. The saw does collapse flat, as you guys saw just a second ago, what it's like in the stowaway position. We rolled it out flat, and I'm going to show you a couple of things. This saw expands, obviously. It has a expansion slot there, and I thought, as I was mousing around on YouTube and whatnot, I saw some other modifications that someone else did, but I happened to make a router table insert directly for this saw. Now, this was another project that I did. This is the Jessam, it's from the Jessam tool company. This is a router lift accessory table that I made with the template, right? And this is actually 2 pieces of 3/4 inch melamine laminate. This is that clamped them together. I glued them together with some Gorilla Glue, and I used a template that I bought at the Woodcraft store to cut this perfect router table hole so that it's flush, so I don't have any spots that catch on here. So here's the interesting part. With the same project and using a Dado blade on this particular saw, I made a little, like a key, like a little spot on both sides, so I can insert this into, and I'll show you the other side here. The other side is slightly different, right? But it's going to slide right into these keyhole slots. These are the slots where our saw sits and whatnot. So you're thinking, well, it fits just like, let's see if we can get it in here. This saw right here, we slide it into the little crack here, and it just happens to rest just perfectly. Now, this is another project that I did in the past. Lift it there, fit it nice and snug, and I meticulously measured so I can put that router table in there. And now what I essentially have is I turn my table saw into a router table with the router table insert. Now your router is going to get insert from the bottom, right, through the router lift, and then we have some tools up here, an Allen wrench and whatnot, so we can raise and lower the router as we need it. So, but we're missing a pretty serious component here, router fence. Now there's some pretty fancy projects out there with some homemade router fence. There's some commercial router fences available by various brands. You know, right now the fence of seems to be of choice is a Biesemeyer Rand fence. There's a 1,000,001 accessories for those and whatnot. Well, what we're going to do is use the fence that came with this particular table. So let's put it on there and I'll show you how it works. Okay, this is the Ridgid brand fence that came with this table saw. And I gotta tell you, I am impressed with it. I really am. Now, this fence, it does have a pre-measured ruler there. It's pretty accurate with the position in relationship to this blade, which I have right now. The blade is lowered all the way down there. We're gonna make a wooden adjustable fence so that we can use this sliding fence, and we essentially have a router table with a vacuum attachment. Okay, so for starters, we went to the specialty woodcraft store and we bought these. These are 1/4-inch T-bolts, and these bolts happen to fit right into our fence here. We have our MDF raw material that we're going to make our actual fence out of. These are some little hand star knobs, threaded, that fit these T-bolts right here. We also have this vacuum attachment, and I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do yet, but so we're going to kind of brainstorm together here as we build it, and we're going to figure it out so we can attach this on the end. Got 3 of those. We're going to cut the groove in the wood so we can accommodate for our vacuum attachment. The vacuum attachment is going to sit just right inside. So I'm using this jig by Craig because it's better than my fence for this particular cut. So we can just cut the groove. All we need really is the width of the kerf of the blade, and we're going to do that right now. So I set my stop, and I just kind of eyeballed it here, but I'm using this so we're using. Okay, now that we made our couple of passes, what we have here is a perfect little cut for our kerf, just like that. So we can add our vacuum attachment. All right, so we cut our pieces here, and what I did is I had to trim our vacuum attachment a little bit. So I wanted to rest flush right here and be held by 2 pieces. So we're gonna put this piece of wood that's cut into the groove that I have with a little bit of space, and you see it rests right there on the curve, and we're just kind of mocking it up here so we can figure out what we're going to make our other cut, our dado cut. We're going to make a dado cut, and so we can join these 2 pieces. We're going to make a dado cut, so we're going to join these 2 pieces right here together. Sorry for the shadow. So I marked it with a pencil, and then I'll come back a little bit later and make it precise as to where we're going to cut. Notice I'm kind of judging it where this lays flat on the fence, on the top of the fence, and so we're going to ultimately put our T-bolts into those spots right there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and change our saw blade out to our dado blade and go from there. One other thing, guys, safety first. You know, never trust your saw or anything. If you want to keep your limbs, your 5 fingers, whatever, listen, unplug the saw before you change your blade. All right, I mean, I'm huge on safety. Just unplug it. All right, let's get it changed out and we'll go from there. Go. All right, guys, I want to show you this. We're going to use the Infinity. This is the Dado Junior. This is a 6-inch blade right here. It's a stacked blade. On this saw, I know there's a 8-inch is real popular, but because of the torque rating of this particular saw, better stick with a 6-inch. It's perfect for this saw. I don't need real deep cuts for the projects that I do. It has a torque. I don't have to compromise the motor or risk burning it out. It's a nice blade. It's really clean. It's a little bit expensive, but it makes really good cuts. So we're gonna go ahead and swap this out right now, and we'll go from there. Our detonator set in there. Detonator blade sets at 3/4 inch. And this actually is a different faceplate that I had to order. I ordered this online. I took a long time before it was available. I got this saw when it first came out, and this faceplate was essential for me to have. I went online. You go to Ridgid Tools. look around for the part number, and there's some other third parties that make it, but it's awesome. All right, so here it is again. Here's another mock-up. This dado cut is perfect. I mean perfect. It fits nice and tight. I had to do a couple test cuts and shimmed it with the proper shims, and now I have my vacuum attachment in there, and it is nice and tight. I'm happy with the fit. Okay, let's look at the other side real quick, because we're gonna have to trim it a little bit. It's always better to have too much than not enough, so we're gonna trim this down a little bit so it rests. The table ends way in there. We're gonna trim that a little bit, make it right, and of course we're gonna come back and cut our hole here, and then we're gonna make some sliding adjusters. All right, we're gonna cut this piece with the saber saw, a little notch out right there. Drill some holes. We're gonna drill some holes in the drill press, right where we measured the dots. There, 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 and there. Okay, so our parts have dried overnight, and this is what we have so far. We have this section that we built yesterday. We do have a groove on this side, which we're gonna put a piece there. And you can see a little bit of the overflow. I used some Gorilla Glue to glue in the vacuum spout. It's all right, it doesn't need to be super pretty. We're not in a beauty contest here. It's absolutely functional. So we have to finish the box off by the piece that's gonna go into this dado slot, which we're gonna cut in a minute. And we have to go ahead and cut our adjustable face. And so this one piece here, I'm gonna cut our slot that's gonna be angled like a traditional fence, and a slot up the middle, and it's gonna be two halves that are adjustable on sliders. So I'm gonna cut a T-slot, so the screws can go ahead and fit, and they'll be adjustable with some handle knobs. And again, these T-slots right here, I'm gonna put more screws, and I'm gonna drill the holes so we can adjust our fence position. We can take it on and off. All right. All right, this is where we're at. This is completed so far. We still have to make the face that's going to be split into two pieces, so we're going to do that next. We're just test fitting right now, but that's pretty good. I mean, that is right on. It's precise where I want it. We have our vacuum box, so to speak, right there to vacuum all the dust. And I think we're going to go ahead and make our first cut. We're going to install the router, and we're going to make our T-slot. We're going to put the order.
Gibby. What you doing, Gibby?
Alrighty, this is what we're going to use to cut our T-slot. This right here is a 1/4" T-slot router bit. This will cut a nice T-slot in a single pass. I think this one is by Infinity Tools. I ordered it some time back, and this will be the first time I use it. Let's try it. Beautiful, just beautiful. Look at that T-slot.
Alright, I gotta point something out here. You see that little blemish right there? That happened when I was working with the router. It's actually, the bit that I was using is a 1/4 inch rounding over bit, and the bearing slipped into the T-slot. It actually bit into the edge a little bit. Doesn't hurt the functionality, it's just a little cosmetic. Didn't turn out perfect, but it's not a big deal. We're just gonna stay with it.